Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. I, 29 male, have lived in the same apartment since my teens. My mother, 66 female, has gone through breakups, financial trouble, bankruptcy and layoffs and has had trouble paying off her bills. Since the age of 21, I've paid half the rent and utilities, internet, auto insurance, and have paid for my phone bill, my own groceries, etc. I clean up after myself and help out with my mom's errands when she needs help getting somewhere that she is unfamiliar with. I work and have thankfully been promoted several times, so I have been able to contribute without too much sacrifice. Towards my mid-20s till now, I have contributed about 75 to 80% of the expenses since my mom has had trouble finding employment at her age and has little to nothing saved for retirement. She eventually gave up and is living on Social Security Medicare. Her logic is, if she gets a job, she will lose Medicare and her medicine for diabetes. I started growing resentful because I wanted to move out and have my own place. I told her that I would like to move out before I am 30. I originally stated it would be April or June of 2016. She said a lot of nasty things to me, but eventually accepted it. Fast forward to May. My mom meets a guy, 50s, who we will call Oliver. They end up getting together and my mom constantly visits him in his hotel that he was living in. She decides it would be a great idea for him to move into our 2-bedroom apartment at the end of July. I am obviously not thrilled, but he has offered to pay half the rent. I think it's great. Things start to get weird when he moves in. My mom asks if she can borrow $7,000 to help Oliver with his business and paying lawyer fees to transfer money from his international account to his domestic account. Yeah, WTF. I vehemently refuse and immediately get badgered from my mom through several text messages. I end up saying no means no, and if you are so desperate for money, go to the bank and apply for a loan. It was finally the end of it. It happened a few more times, but the money request was much less and there was less arguing. I said I do not want to get involved, and I'm not lending someone I barely know any money. My mom stated that Oliver doesn't know she asked me for money. She merely thought I would do so because she would do the same for me if I had a boyfriend that had money problems. There is more weird stuff that has happened, but this gives you the layout of how my bitterness has grown. I thought I was being a good son by delaying moving on with my life and helping my mother out with the troubles and finances. Now I feel resentful and that I was enabling my mom far too long. At this point, I thought screw it and I needed to leave. In September, I apartment hunted for fun and ended up getting approved for 2 places instantly. I was excited and was about to put my deposit down but wanted to tell my mom first. She hesitated and said she was not sure she could afford the expenses, even though Oliver lives and pays half of the rent. She also said it would disappoint him because he was under the impression I would be leaving next year and not so soon. The intent of him moving in was so that he could save money. I said I just felt it was time for me to go given my age and that now she has a boyfriend. Side note, how it works is he pays half the rent, helps with buying groceries and food. I don't eat what they make. She pays the other expenses like half utilities, internet, auto insurance. I pay my half of everything mentioned above, and everything else not mentioned I pay on my own. My mom and I share the cleaning and chores. I decided to compromise and said I would like to leave by the beginning of December. My mom accepted. She eventually forgot and got pissed at me when she thought it was next year, but I had to restate and stay firm on what my date was. As I'm about to leave for vacation tomorrow for a whole week, she states that she and Oliver would like to talk to me when I get back. I will just tell you what it is. She says she needs permission from him. She eventually tells me and states that they are both disappointed that I am leaving in December and not in April or June like I originally proposed. That why not stay to save money, etc. I was shocked, but still stood my ground and said it was firm. Reddit, how do I cope? I know my mom has gone through so much in her life, and I feel bad about their financial situation, but I want to leave. I just want to be on my own. I'm thinking of offering to help look for a roommate for them to take the room. Edit. I'm very aware of my mom's finances as I have access to all of her accounts. I know all her expenses, credit card, car, medical debt. I've tried to intervene and offer solutions like what personal finances offers. She's having none of it and says it doesn't matter anyway because I'm moving soon and I'm not helping her out with any of her debt. Update. After the constant guilt trips and her stating she was disappointed in me, I was determined to find a place. I found a good deal on an apartment that happens to be a block and a half away from where I lived previously, but my mom doesn't know where I live yet. I plan to tell her as soon as I get it fully furnished next week. My mom and her boyfriend were able to talk and work out the finances on their side so that they were able to still stay at their current apartment. I am officially off the lease, so it is left to them. I'm willing to help them out if things come up, but will pay only immediate bills if it comes down to it, pay for groceries, etc. What can I say about living on my own? I'm happy I don't have to hear them argue and fight all the time. I can invite friends over, and I don't feel like I'm in a cramped space. My sister did tell me how mom called her and broke down crying, stating she was happy for me. I was moving forward, but was sad because I'm still a baby. I'm doing my best to move forward and to deal with my guilt and feelings of abandonment I may have now that I am on my own. While I do feel guilt, I knew it was time for me to be on my own. For anyone out there that is struggling in the same situation that I am, if you feel like it is your time to move, do it. I have no regrets and I'm happy I did it. This is especially if you're from a culture where family is expected to live and be together. Everyone loves differently, but I knew I would be happier on my own. I'm glad you've moved out of your mom's apartment, OP. It was high time you got your own place and started living on your own. There's only so much you can do for someone, and in your mom's case, you've done and sacrificed a lot for her. You can still pitch in once in a while if you want, but other than that, don't get involved in her finances. Just live your life and enjoy the freedom of being on your own. It's long overdue. Now for some comments. Don't tell them where you live and stop giving them money. You can't be a crutch for them. I'm glad you got an apartment. I would recommend that you do not tell your family where you live. You can always tell them later, but you can't take information back once it is out there. If you tell them where you live, you run the risk of having your mother drop in whenever she wants to check on you. Your mom made her own life choices and created the situation she's in now. Like you've pointed out, she has options like getting help with managing her finances, getting a roommate, etc. If she can't afford the apartment, she could also move to a less expensive one. You're almost 30. It's high time you move out and live your own adult life. You can still help your mom out here and there with money if you want to, but she's a big girl and needs to learn to live within her means. If she doesn't know how yet, it's not your job to support her, and once you leave, it may spur her to get her financial affairs in better order. Story 2. I just experienced my first family life-threatening tragedy last night that made me worry for my family and my future. I called Dad last night to ask about his medications. I call his phone and my mom picks up. She yells, "Dad was unconscious. Come home now." What? Can he move? Can he talk? He can talk but he can't move. Come home now. Mom, call 911 now. He doesn't want an ambulance. You have to come home now. No. That shouldn't matter right now. I eventually got her to agree to call the ambulance. I headed towards the nearest emergency hospital with my boyfriend, who was with me at the time. To make sure I was going to the right hospital, I called my mother. She picks up the phone and tells me she gave him sugar water and that he's just laying down. She didn't call 911. He was somewhat conscious now. No time to argue. We immediately headed to my house. When I got home, I saw Dad laying on the floor and my mom sitting on the couch not knowing what to do. He was very pale and could not move. I called 911. My parents can't speak English, so I translated everything possible to the emergency crew. We found out that my mom came home at 4 p.m., found him unconscious and left him laying there for an hour. By the time I arrived, he was awake. Dad last remembered walking the dog around 11 a.m. and felt so tired that he ended up laying on the floor of the living room. Dad is currently in the hospital. Emergency room doctor said he did CAT scans, blood and urine check, but couldn't find out the cause of this episode. I should be getting a call from the doctor today for an update. What do I do in the future? I feel like my mother is very hopeless and very hating. She was yelling at me for not picking up the phone on emergencies like this. But why wasn't her mind thinking I need to call 911? Instead of, I need to get my daughter to deal with this. Just a side note, I have an older brother, 29 male, who my mother favors. She still thinks he's the golden child even though he left the house to leave the state 4 to 5 years ago, raging against the parents, continues to ask for money from mom, and accused me of stealing money. Long story, doesn't make sense. I'm worried that my parents aren't aware that I won't always be there for them either. But I can't just leave them out of the blue. Since my parents don't speak English, I'm the middleman to make calls for them. I make the calls to make medical appointments, visit and talk to the doctor, pay all the house bills, and take care of other legal problems they get involved with. I sometimes have to make medical decisions for my dad. He has diabetes, so we often visit his primary doctor and nutritionist. They ask questions, I translate to Dad. Dad asks me to answer for them, and I can't. I don't know what he eats every day and his personal information. I am a full-time student living at my boyfriend's house due to the very unhealthy living conditions in my parents' house. I am a semester away from transferring to a university. Education and working towards my career are my primary concerns. Eventually, I won't be able to make those small 30 to 40-minute drives for them. I'm not sure what kind of advice I'm looking for. I feel like I'm losing my vision and not sure how to move forward. Update. Thank you. Thank you so much for the comments, thoughts, advice, and all the kind words. Sorry if my poor writing skills made my responses sound rude. Receiving words from so many people with different perspectives is very eye-opening. There were much more things to be considered and planned than just teaching them English. Like someone mentioned, they have more than just language barrier problems. I need to clarify the situation for myself. Dad had strokes and he needs rehab. He won't be working again. He will also be needing a caretaker from now on. Convince mom to be his caretaker. I won't be his caretaker. She won't be able to pay the house rent by herself. They will have to move out. The only option now is my mom's parents' house. They live in a relaxed countryside, own a house, plenty of space and rooms. Relationship problems are what they need to deal with. Need to talk to dad and mom separately, ask them their plan, tell them what I want and my plan. Remind myself I have midterms next week to worry about too. Update brother about dad's health situation just because he's a family member. I know this isn't everything, but I wanted to make it a little more clear for myself. Regardless of their opinion, I already decided not to be the caregiver for my dad. I don't want to live with them. I finally have a routine, a healthier living environment, and goals to work towards. I don't want to give up my education and career. Again, thank you for all the input. It's really refreshing to hear from so many backgrounds. I'm sorry you're going through this, OP. It sounds like a difficult situation to be in, and I can see that you're trying your very best to help your parents. They are lucky to have a good kid like you. It's good to see you're making use of all the advice, and hopefully they all work out for you so this way you can keep parents safe and not have to give up on your education and career. Good luck.